right, I'm gonna bring the meeting to order at whatever, 6:00. And declare a quorum. Is there anyone here for public comment?
You're public, you can comment. Yeah, public.
Okay, you want to comment or?
I do not want to comment.
Okay. There was somebody else online, but they're not there anymore.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were a holdover, I think, from
Oh, from the other
the
thing.
info session.
Okay, thanks. And then we'll consider the approval of the meeting minutes from January 21st, 2025. Anybody have any comments or questions?
No, I was just gonna move to approve.
Any second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes from the 21st of January, 2025? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, we're right into the treasurer report. Kara, you're,
So you all have in your packet. This. Yeah.
Yes.
So you all have in your packet the statement of activities and you should have something else too. Yep, you should have balance sheets and and then in addition to that, you'll see that both of them have been annotated. So there's like notes, numbers, and then those correspond with a list of notes. So what we're looking at today is year end. So this is not a current statement. This is not current update. This was end of year 2024. So that's why Jennifer helpfully put together the list of notes that kind of have some of the highlights and some clarifications and explanations and those kinds of things. Jennifer, I don't know if you had like a presentation or if you were just here to answer questions or what you were thinking.
Just here to answer questions.
Here to answer questions.
just a reminder that we agreed that 2 months following the end of the each quarter, every 2 months we'd give a and then the 2 months after we'd summarize the last quarter. I guess this would be the last year.
Mhm.
I had a question about that. It's about now where I read it, it said admin costs. Maybe it's personal service number 6, personal costs, including wages, benefits, state and federal taxes, professional development, food, business meeting. Total expenditures was $300K more than projected for the 2025 budget.
If you remember right, we had done a mid-year projection, so it's not different than what was budgeted. But we had done a mid-year projection anticipating about $3.5 million. Jennifer should correct me, but about $3.5 million in unexpended funds, and that had to do with the pace at which we were able to ramp up from January 1, which was the first date we had it, to getting everybody hired and that kind of thing. In the end, it was not 3.5 million or 3.3 or something like that million in savings, $3.2 million in savings. It was 2.
Okay.
So that's the difference that Jennifer's explaining.
You were able to hire people faster or whatever.
We did okay.
I had a quick question as well, and apologies if this has been answered before, but on the carryover revenue, the actuals wound up being about 2.5 million lower than the original budgeted amount. Where did that 2.5 million difference basically come from?
That's spending money to get as I understand it, some of the capital projects.
Isn't this carryover, wasn't this the 2023 carryover into 2024, not the 2024 carryover in 2025?
Are you asking about the $2.55 million under the actual minus budget column?
Correct.
That is the reserve fund. We transferred it out of the carryover from 2023 into a separate line.
So this is the one where we basically just recategorized how we were booking that?
Yes.
Okay.
you're like, that's comment 11, is that what you're referring to?
Nope, it's this line.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
No, I misunderstood, Chris.
I thought you were referring to comment 11.
No, if we had line numbers, I would give a reference, but
Okay,
the second line under carryover revenue.
okay, yeah.
Hey, but that answered it. Thank you, Jennifer.
Mhm.
I was just curious, like, so this is kind of our first year end, like, year end for our first full year. And just looking at it, like, I'm curious, like, I mean, I feel like we did pretty well under, based upon all the things that we had going on. I'm just curious, like, about going forward. Is there anything that we've learned from the year end for this last year that would like affect the way we look at the budget going forward?
Um. Well, yes, I mean, we adjusted the budget for facilities cost. So facilities cost, most of you remember, right, in the 2024 season, we were mostly, spitballing. Jennifer and I spent a lot of time guessing what the amounts were going to be. So the 2025
Mhm.
is more reflective of the actual expenditures. The one place where I would say um, we were off by an amount. I don't remember precisely how much, but that was in the operation of the facilities and how many things were going to be taken. So we have increased the budget for that for 2025. The other place where I think we were over was in program expenses, and for the up until 2024, program expenses were funded by the foundation. It was a new thing for us as well. And I think I don't know that we increased their budget accordingly, but we did increase the budget slightly. But it's a growing part of the field. Certainly bringing on Studio 24 mid-year affected that price because there's a lot of associated costs with programming that go into the makerspace. It's pretty labor intensive, and a lot of equipment. So we had to adjust that budget up slightly, but it's also one of those things that is episodic, and we probably need to get a better handle on controlling the cost, but and working towards the budgeted amount, which I think we'll hit it in 2025.
Do you think it'd be possible to consider related to programs and events, separating those out? Because, I mean, just as budget items, because I think the programs, I mean, there's a way to look at that and see what's happening, and events could be more variable. I don't know.
There may
There-
be a way to separate them by program. Um,
And
So
I'm
each
so sorry.
program has its own budget, except for like main library programs, the general programs that we put on has a bucket that they draw from for all the different kinds of things, like Building 61 has its own bucket. One Book, One Boulder, which is an event, has its own bucket, and I can report to you on those buckets, but not all of them are specific.
Mhm. I just think as that grows, then it would be helpful to be able to track or at least see, where that goes. I don't know if anybody agrees.
oh no, I was just curious because I wasn't clear on how do you decide whether something's a program or an event? Like,
Well, yeah, it
Is-
varies, and a lot of times it comes back around to the public. Why don't we talk about it more with the finance committee, and we'll figure out a ways to break it out in some future years to tell you what a program or an event cost. I'm thinking of the recipient end in some
Mhm.
ways, and so like almost half of all of our program attendance is story time.
Mm.
Story time is not reflected anywhere in the program and events line, except in a minor way, the amount of funding that the youth services department draws from the programs and events budget. So, and per branch, but oftentimes it's mostly a staff cost.
Mhm.
So it's not really actually reflected in nearly, I think it might be over half. It's nearly half, if not, of the program, of the attendees to programs are coming for story time.
Okay.
There's no cost reflected in the programs and events budget there that
Hmm.
shows that. That doesn't cover a story. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Programs and events are Building 61, Studio 24, One Book, One Boulder, all the evening programs.
What about like the thing they held up at like North Boulder Library with the local communities, you know, with the break dancers and the
That would have been a programming.
program. Although I would think it was an event, so.
Well, program and events.
Yeah, so it's together, but yeah.
Okay.
Maybe programs are annually running things versus events are one-time thing.
That's how I would think
Mhm.
about it, but I don't know how the staff thinks about it.
Yeah. Okay.
The simple fact is, for you, I think it is important to recognize that it's a growing part of what the library does, right? So it's always been a component of what the library does.
Yeah.
Programs and events have grown substantially in the district. We were with the city, and even with foundation funding, we're probably now, discounting all of the ongoing investment that the foundation made into things like Boulder Reads and Carnegie and all these different things. The specific money that goes into programs and events now is more than it was. There are more staff members associated with that with programs and events, and it's a growing part of what we do.
Yeah.
Something like Building 61 or Studio 24. There was an event this year that had 153 people on the waiting list for a 12-person program. Scaling that up wasn't really possible at the time, but it is a noticeable, some people say it's a good problem to have. It's not a good problem to have for very long, honestly. And so I don't know exactly how we scale up programs and events to meet that need, but we're seeing that the need, especially with Studio 24 and Building 61, the need far outstrips the ability for us to.
What was that program?
That was a printmaking,
It was printmaking. I was on
Yeah,
that
the
list.
Textile program.
all the printmaking, no, not the textiles, it was printmaking. So the printmaking.
That one,
programs
that's
were-
right, that's right.
Love print.
Yeah, those were really cool.
So, we had already planned for what's happening in the third quarter. And so we can't extend the second quarter printmaking program for an extra 3 months because we already have programmers lined up for the third quarter. And so the printmaking thing will come to an end. We'll probably repeat it next year, but just because of but the textile ones were also popular.
Yeah.
Those programs have just been filling up.
Are there any that may underutilized?
From Building 61 and Studio 24, no,
No, not at all.
no.
Think the only ones, the open studio, I think,
Open Studio still has space, yeah.
yeah, I think is the only thing that we have some, room for it. So we are going to focus on that, going forward in the newsletters, that we have to advertise open studio and indicate the. Can be done.
So I don't have like a specific presentation or anything. I figure you guys can read the highlights, which Jennifer helpfully prepared. But I think those are most of the highlights that are in there and try, or at least an attempt to answer some of the questions that might come up if you're doing all of it, but. Yeah, I think one of the things she noted when we met about this was that, it's in the summary, the note about capital expenditures. We are essentially ahead of schedule for some of the capital expenditure encumbrances. So there's money that was anticipated to be spent in 2025 that we actually encumbered in 2024. So that accounts for some of that gap.
Right. I understood that, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, most of that's gun barrel, I think.
Mhm.
But a lot of other things too. I think Jennifer calls some of them out in the memo.
Oh, in the.
That break room in the north building,
North building.
yeah. Shades
And
for the
the-
cafe and teen space. Various other window repairs, door replacements.
Yeah, got it.
Mhm.
Okay. Any more comments about the budget?
Just
Benita?
one more question on the cafe. Does that number include personnel?
No. Personnel is rolled into the personnel cost line item, which has got a tag in the notes as number 6. So that's non-personnel budget.
Right. Would we ever think about that as an enterprise?
We did for 7 years.
No, I mean, but now attaching, sort of a budget look at it from,
Yeah, so we've not done the with the cafe, but we did roll up for you during the budget season, the cost of every program. So we break, it's not something, it's not the way Sage is set up, but we can do it. It's manual labor that Jennifer did last year. We can do that for you at any time you need, where we can roll both the staffing cost into the operational, the expenses here that we budget. So you can see by program what each thing costs. And I think we should probably do that for the cafe sometime in this course of this year.
Easy to do.
The cost that we had projected, I should imagine it's not too far off of that, right? So when we came back and asked whether or not we would run it in-house, was that I anticipate the cost of the benefit is around $200,000 a year, right? So we agreed not to go over $200,000 a year, but I should imagine we're well under that still, but it will go into that wheelhouse. It's all a matter of service calculation. And if we did not have the cafe on the bridge, how many staff members would I have to hire to activate the bridge in the manner in which it's activated now with the cafe? That was always our calculation for the city and allowing people in on a lease to come in and run the cafe. It was really about the goal is the activation of the bridge. And if we didn't have the cafe there and had staff running the cafe, even when it was an outside vendor, worked for Boulder Farmers Market, they were able to activate the bridge and then no other vendor was actually able to pull that off, for whatever reason. I think mostly coming back around to the cost of labor, and the pandemic. But now running it inside, I should imagine we'd have to factor in what income comes into Jennifer, the whole balance, right? The cost and the income runs back to us.
And even with the bumps that we had last year with staffing, we brought permanent staff in, June, July, David?
August.
Yeah.
August. So after August, most of the revenues were collected after August when we were open. And you can see that the revenues collected almost, or actually exceed by like $150 the materials expenses on just under the line numbered 11. Yep. So we broke even on supplies, which is amazing. And I think we're going to do even better this year.
I just know coffee beans are expensive, right? So, are we?
All right. Mark Cafe, my favorite place to sit. All right. Okay, so any more comments about the budget before we move to the next item on thing? Thank you, Kara, for preparing that, and Jennifer. Director update.
All right, so a lot of things in the director update this month. So I'm going to need an action on the lease. I'm asking for an action on the lease agreement. So you have the lease and we'll start there and then we can just open it up to the rest of the report. But the lease agreement was one that we discussed, I think, in 2023 that we knew we had to accommodate the facilities team at some point, which is brand new to the library. We had, I think, agreed to spend money in 2024. We did not successfully find a space for the facilities team in 2024. We looked at a lot of places. Now we have identified a location that's just right across the street from Alfalfa's here on Broadway. We have submitted a letter of intent. You have a lease in front of you tonight. I believe you have the red line version. Kim, you're there. I think that the landlord accepted all the changes that you had put in the red line version. So
Yes,
with your approval,
everyone.
we'd be, yeah. So with your approval, we would be good to go. The cost for the year is about $30,000 a year. The primary purpose of the facility space and the need for it, which we recognized in 2023, 2024, as soon as we hired staff, was they don't really have a dedicated space here in the library to do any kind of work. Their tools are in a locked cage in the basement. The day porter staff do have adequate space here in the library, and we're doubling the size of the day porter staff in 2025 as you approved in the budget. Facilities team, well, one of them sits back next to Maria in the communications office. One of them kind of has a table and a closet downstairs, and we're looking for both office space and workspace for them, and also tool space. So it's kind of like a bunch of stuff comes in that needs assembly. Right now, if it fits on the elevator, we may take it down to down the elevator and assemble it in whatever space is available, and then bring it back up. They were looking really for a place to offload deliveries so that they could assemble stuff in a workshop environment. Clean and dirty, so clean and dirty workshop environment, and then bring it to the library's location. So that's what I'm asking you to look into. Do you guys have any questions about the lease?
How did you resolve the requirement that we join the Chamber of Commerce in Boulder?
The chamber won't have us. We are members of the downtown Boulder. So the chamber, when I asked, they said they did not accept government members, and I don't believe they do. We are members of downtown Boulder. We became members back in January 2024 when the district was formed and we were independent. We reached out to them and they were more than happy to have us as members, and it does get us some benefits, and we get some heads up about certain things and get a chance. We also are asked to lobby on their behalf, which we don't as a government entity, but that's how they work, right? They're all kind of a collective membership associations which lobby for various issues.
What's the membership dues? What is the?
For downtown Boulder, it was, I don't know, Jennifer might have it thing. It was not, I don't know, it wasn't close to my P card limit because they told me to just sign up online and do it. So I don't know, under 1,000 downtown Boulder.
I just wonder if
I don't know
it's
what,
on the number of employees or something like that, it would be a lot.
no, I don't know about the chamber, but I did inquire with John
Yeah.
early on, and I respect that, right? It's a good practice. Probably you don't want government influencing small business decisions, small and large business decisions. So I will inquire again. I in every other library district I've been in, we have been active members of the chamber. I think I told Doug, I mean, I was elected as an officer of a chamber in Castle Rock, Colorado. I was part of the executive committee, so.
So I have a couple questions. What's the, what do you see as putting in as far as like, improvements into the building and costs associated with that?
Pretty minimal. So we do have to get office furniture. We will have, cost around painting. But most of the bench equipment and tools and things we already have, either we have them currently and we will have to get them anyway. But I think the overall cost, we have to get a wireless connection. So we have to but I think they've asked for one computer in the space. So it's really a workspace. I'm guessing all in, we're under, let's say 15 grand, between 10 and 20, I guess, for the cost of redoing the space. We will hire painters just so we can get it done in a day.
This is a 5-year lease.
5-year lease.
And then
And all the equipment we would buy would be mobile. We're not doing infrastructural changes on the plumbing, on the electrical, although we will hire an electrician to go in and test it for safety. The facilities crew did ask, I mean, they would do it on their own. We would buy a toilet and a sink from Home Depot and install it ourselves,
no,
improve the fixtures.
for me, I think it makes sense. The location is pretty good because it's central to, do you know what percentage of time, or just off the hand, I guess most of the work is done on this building, or like how often are they at the other buildings? And in buildings.
I mean, Andres is the manager of the department, so he's probably here more than the rest. The day porter's obviously here, but the facilities team is anywhere. Your guess is as good as mine. They've been out of Gun Barrel a lot over the last several weeks, and
Right.
I believe the demo, I have photos to prove it. The demolition began today. We got our permit on Friday. The demolition in Gun Barrel was in heavy.
Do we have a ticket system or how, what, is it emails?
It is a ticket system.
Okay, maybe at some point, good to see like where they're spending their time. It's something we looked at last year or 2 years ago, so, but anyway, I do think that they need a place to work. Like they can't work on the floor out here. So it does make sense. I hate having to have more building space, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just stated intentions, right? Like, I don't want to be there really longer than 5 years, but the problem that we have with these is the same problem we discussed at the retreat about the Meadows Library, about the Carnegie Library. There are a lot of groups that are up against it in terms of space needs. And, you know, ideally, I think probably at some point in the future, we would consider consolidating some of these things as best we possibly can. It would be obviously best if we owned it rather than we're paying rent. But none of those things are just, nobody's gonna just show up on our doorstep and say, here's whatever, 40,000 square feet. Come on in.
The city of Boulder is supposed to dispose of like 25% of their buildings. If there were any that were, I think we should look at maybe I'll do that, go back and look at the facility master plan and see, you know, not now, but in the future, like, is there any that we could talk them into, leasing to us for 20 years for free or something, and, we'll take over the maintenance.
I encourage you to do so. I will caution you that most of them are in
Worse shape than.
the condition or worse of what
Well, I know that they wouldn't give us the, but if it's for a facility, you know.
Reynolds graded out as a B, and I think that was like that one of the highest graded buildings at the city.
Yeah.
So this library, I think, was a C, probably approaching a B status. The
But
others.
won't they be vacating the Channel 8 communications department at some point in the future?
Over here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Channel 8,
Will they move with the,
they would like to.
Yeah.
The plan is, you know, the IGA, the agreement is we won't ask them that question until 2028.
okay. Any more questions on this lease? Was it a pizza joint? Like I looked at the picture on
It was a nightclub.
a nightclub.
You sure
It
you
was
don't
a
wanna,
pizza joint as well. On one side, it was a pizza joint, and one side it was a underground nightclub.
Is there stuff you're gonna have to like take out or dispose of in there?
That's part of the agreement and they're removing it all.
They're taking it off. Okay.
library doesn't want to get into the nightclub business?
You don't want like lights.
We're keeping the DJ lights. No, I'm kidding. I don't, the disco balls.
Yeah.
Staying.
Whole new audience we could expose to the love of reading.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that thing about the Chamber of Commerce is just weird to me. I mean, they told you they didn't want a government entity in there
As members, yeah.
because the school district has a representative on their board. So I wonder how they differentiate between a school district and a library district.
Oh, really?
It seems odd.
That is interesting.
I don't know.
They're still mad at us for
We'll take a board from the district
district.
at the Chamber of Commerce. They won't cut this.
Was that phrasing though, that came from Tebow, right? In the contract?
Yeah, it was, it looks like
Membership.
it was part of.
It
the
was,
template.
yeah, it wasn't something that Kim put in there or anything like that, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I just wondered, I wondered.
I'll ask them again.
Oh, yeah, they have the school district representative on
I'll just say, what about,
Diversity.
it. Yeah.
they tell me no, they don't like government entities. What about the school district?
Tell John we'll take a board position. Or you will. Okay, without any more questions. Kim, do we need to do a formal vote on this? Yes?
You do because the board is the only one with the power to enter into the lease, so.
Okay, yeah, okay. Then, I'll make a motion to approve the lease with potentially minor, legal revisions if there are in the future, and edits and corrections to the extent that they don't materially change the terms of the lease. I'll make a motion to approve the lease. You want me to say that again, or? Okay, yeah. We'll do a second. Okay, all in favor of approving the lease, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, then the motion carries and the lease is approved.
Thank you very much. So I hope you had a chance to read the rest of the director's report. Gun barrels, obviously, things are starting to happen. We did get the demolition permit on Friday. Demolition is happening today. We hope to have the permit for construction soon, in which case we'll be getting going. But I did want to I cribbed it almost straight out of Rebecca Beckley, who's the branch manager in Gun Barrel. She's been very active in the community. She's meeting with every business, every school, every interest group, and so she's making a lot of great progress. I thought it was interesting that both of the schools in Gun Barrel have offered her office space. She has a hot desk here, which she said she might consider it once we're further along in construction, but she's happy with that. The Carnegie Library, we are doing a space needs analysis as we talked about in the retreat, and we have Caroline Woodiale, the manager there, has done a really nice job of putting together a space needs, prospectus over the next 20 years, depending upon various levels of acquisition of assets for the historical collection. As you know, right now, we do not accept most donations that go into the space because we're out of space. And so that's a really good report. We are pricing out a lot of the things, and I think we'll be coming back to you with that report in April. I don't want to lead you to believe that we're coming back with a recommendation to do any of it. But I think you will get a sense of the magnitude of how far we have to go, both with Caroline's report and also the report that's coming from the architectural firm that we're working with that's pricing out a lot of the different stuff. Making the building fully accessible at minimum for anyone is a pretty hefty price tag. The meta search is going as it is going. Just a word of caution in there as well. It's I think since August, a heady realization that a lot of the properties that are coming available are not suitable properties. In some cases, they're not. They are small, little unincorporated areas that are not on city water, and the building is for sale because it's in terrible condition, and you would have to go through all process of getting incorporated into the city to get on city water. I don't think you guys are interested in opening up a building with well water. I know I'm not. Septic tank, but that process keeps moving forward. I think I do believe still that an opportunity will present itself, but the commercial market is where we were in August. It was probably its bottom, and it is starting to show some signs of recovery, the commercial real estate market.
David, you mentioned this at the finance committee, but what is the radius that we would consider the East Boulder service area? Like if I'm driving around and I see something on East Arapahoe, is that too far north or?
No, and we're only really, we did do some GIS work in 2018 when we did the master plan, and obviously East Boulder had come up quite a lot, and that's where there is a lot of residential growth. And so we typically use, and I should have brought my map. We typically use like a concentric circles, 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile radius, right? And so Gun Barrel is the largest service population of any of our libraries, aside from downtown. Downtown, probably in the service population around 60,000. Not Gun Barrel, Meadows. Meadows is probably second with around 25 to 30,000 people in the service area. No other service area that we have is more than 16,000. So it is a place of expanding growth. The growth is moving somewhat east. If you look at the way the city is going, I think it would be a major challenge to close the library in that neighborhood. because it also, the proximity to affordable housing, which is one of the recipes we talked about in North Boulder, it is, in terms of economic status, it is the most diverse area of all of Boulder. And even from a point of view of race or ethnicity, it is also one of the more highly diverse areas. So I don't know, I think that would have to come into play. To any discussion, but at this point, I don't think we can rule out anything, right? It may require us to reassess some of our vision around what the libraries are meant to serve, but obviously if a property or a building presented itself, we'd have to be ready to have some of those discussions. If it were moving further east, if it were to move further west, what would be the implications of a property even, 3 blocks west of that site implied? Right now, Meadows and Reynolds are a mile apart. And if you look at the map, we are concentrated heavily along the central spoke of Broadway. Gun Barrel is changing that to some extent by putting a library further east, but the distance east of the Meadows branch is pretty limited. It's not very far east. It's like boom, tiny little Carnegie, main library. Reynolds and Meadows are situated here on the map. You kind of can see the history of where growth occurred along spokes in Boulder. And I think that central spoke, Broadway, has kind of filled capacity, right? Until Noble came along, the library hadn't opened up a new building since 1968. And now we're opening two. It's sort of changing the equation of where growth has occurred really in the last 50 years, and that's north and east. And so
Usually reacting to.
yeah, we may have to, when we did the master plan, there was quite a lot of discussion of the eastern portion of Boulder. The diagonal was a point of discussion about the need for libraries. 55th and Valmont was another place where people discussed the need for a library. They did not make it into the 2018 plan because we were trying to put a realistic picture on what can we really do now, and that was essentially limited to Nobo and Gun Barrel. But I think as we start on the next plan, and certainly we may be forced to do that now as we try to figure out how to contend with the fact that Meadows has the smallest library and the second largest service population, we may have to consider other options, right? We may think about them, like what the implications of that would be.
Did you ever talk to Nellie about the rec center?
I have not. The East Boulder Rec Center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing, I think there's a few places like that we need to look at. The Islamic Center, I thought somebody said they were interested.
David said that before.
I don't know, but I
that-
think it's a good topic, to bring to the next retreat again. I mean, we'll probably want to bring it up and go into it deep. I don't want to belabor the point unless people have more comments on the Meadows branch. We can. I don't want to take. There's a bunch more listing items here, so I want to keep going.
Yeah, so the teen role in library planning in the works, external safety around Maine. I'm pleased to report that things have been pretty good for the last 4 months. The wireless around Novo, we have done some preliminary investigation. I don't have a more full report because I'm waiting on Amy to report out. Amy Shum, the director of IT, to report out to me. She did meet with a couple of different groups. I think the board had actually recommended some groups that were working in that space. And so she had contacted each of them. And I think we've kind of explored some things. There are some legal hurdles. Libraries have never been prosecuted in the state of Colorado for the provision of wireless service beyond the bounds of their 4 walls, but it's kind of the law is a little ambiguous about what we can and cannot do. So that was one of the things that I think we needed to explore.
Anita has a question.
So is it intended to serve residents adjacent to the library?
That was one of the conversations that was floated during the retreat, and I know that it was something that we have thought about.
But is it now? I mean,
No.
okay.
No, it's probably, there's always neighbors. You'd be surprised at how many neighbors are picking up on the wireless signal.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, that's what I
it's
didn't
and
understand.
not just at Novo,
Yeah.
at any of the library locations. So we have a
I think
pretty
the
powerful
question,
This was originally the focus right here was what would it take to really expand wireless access into the mobile home community that exists up there?
Okay,
Like,
can we,
is it
can we
technically-
leverage what's already there?
Is it technically possible? And then the second question eventually would be, if it is
Is it a good idea?
it something we want to do?
Yeah.
So we've explored grants through the years about the various things. As you remember, during the pandemic, we used the wireless hotspots. The heavy concentration of use of the wireless hotspots was households with children in North Boulder, because they have the least, access to just free connectivity. So, it is a program that I think we continue to explore and look at ways to see if we can accomplish it. And maybe we have a parsed out system. The wireless hotspot program, while it was not inexpensive, the foundation basically floated the boat for that for a year until the federal government picked up, and there were grants coming from the federal government to offset the cost, because we not only gave out free wireless hotspots, but we paid their connectivity fees for, I think, close to 2 years. And then that program continued for a while for seniors. So seniors were able to stay within that program for beyond 2 years, but I think that's all come to an end at this point.
Would say so.
Okay.
Marketing communication strategy, we're going to dip into that next with the library survey, but I'm happy to take any questions you may have. The survey will be, we're pretty much ready to go with a survey. I did notice a couple more typos today, which we've been on and off of it since, I don't know. October, November, we started and you stopped and we started and we stopped. And so I think it's pretty much ready to go at this point. But did anybody else have any other questions about the director's report?
I think the communications have gotten a lot better on the emails, at least, that I don't, you're not giving out many. I think that's good. I'm not on social media, so I don't see what's on on too many social media platforms. I've heard we don't have a Blue Sky handle, so maybe we need a Blue Sky handle. But
They're on Instagram.
You do.
It's nice.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too. We're the two that like everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great, okay.
I'll occasionally post stuff on Reddit if I think it's in my own name. I think it's relevant to the community. So.
We had, if you had a list, if I had the nerve to share you the list of things that we had placed on the marketing and communications team's to-do list at the beginning of 2024 with no staff members except for Maria, you would probably have told me at that time, like, you must be crazy. And so we have struggled with staffing within the department. Maria has been steady. But we have struggled with staffing. And so we were not able to accomplish nearly all the things we had set out to do. One of the top priorities we have right now is the strategic plan around marketing and communications. I know that multiple of you have sent in ideas like, hey, what if we send mailers out to everybody? What if we send mailers to people in the unincorporated areas? What if we did this kind of thing? What if we got on Blue Sky? I don't think there's a shortage of ideas about what we might be able to do, but there is not a strategy. And we have priced out most of the items that have been requested, so a mailer to everyone in the county, I think the price we were given was $21,000. It's pretty expensive to do a thing like that. It's questionable the efficacy of doing such a thing. The open rate is about 3%. So, I think if we're sending it to 61,000 households, that means less than 2,000 actually read it. And for $21,000, that's a pretty hefty price. And is that the best thing we can do? I'm not saying it's something we will not do. In fact, we might do it, but we need to have the overall strategy in place before we actually start to act on some of those things. Right now, the things that we are doing, and I think very effectively, the newsletter, I think is our most powerful tool by a long shot, more so than the webpage, more so than social media. We have now over 80,000 subscribers to the newsletter. We have an open rate of, I don't even know how high, it's pretty high for the open rate on the newsletter, well over 25%, which is a pretty phenomenal tool. There are not many organizations that have it. We've been spending a lot of time in trying to get that newsletter to be more effective. Maria rolled out this year targeted newsletters that are going to specific demographic groups and or interest groups, book clubs, for instance, people who have attended programs about bees. And so we put something directly to them and send them something, and that has largely been very successful, right? So an anecdotal story, like there's a program, it's got 8 people in it. You send it out to all the people who are interested in bees, and by the end of the day, the program has 40 people on the waiting list. That's great, right? That's effective. That's an effective.
We feel
Effective
that,
marketing.
We
Yeah.
got 216 people registered for our program in one day. We have 24, it was, and then, was the first time Catherine Lane told me in, I don't know how many years that we filled that program. So if I can piggyback a little bit, what we are doing next month, starting in March, is actually we are going to roll 9 different newsletters. So I'm working on a newsletter that will go out next week, that will actually ask the patrons to customize the personalized experience in the library. So they are going to be able to go to the preference center that we had set up, and they would be able to choose what programs they would like to hear about. So we have 3 different core ones: is the teens, family, and adult. And then we have 6 that are more like interest, like the theater, the Carnegie, have Samuel Discovery, we have one book on Boulder, and Boulder Reads. So whatever you want to hear about, you can subscribe, and you can change as you want. The system will allow us to, whatever the programs are in, you will hear from us. If you are not in those programs, in those newsletters, you will not receive them. So it's something that we are rolling out in March.
So I think things are moving in the right pace. We will have a strategy that we'll bring back to you probably in June, July, sometime in that timeframe. We're working on one now, building out all the 100 things that I asked Maria to do, and trying to break it out into components that are workable components. And then hopefully getting some advice for which things, I think we have about which things might be more effective than another. But it kind of ranking the top 3 or 4 tools that we have. The newsletter is without a doubt the biggest one, probably followed by the web, although we kind of know the activity of people on the web. We've done a lot of analysis of social media. I mean, I think we know what types of things are effective. We did roll out a calendar and an idea. We just did not have the staff capacity to implement that program that we had put in place. And so there's hopes that we can put together some capacity to build upon that strategy that we had, because we've done a lot of analysis of what kind of post works, which ones have a built-in audience, which ones don't, kind of posts don't work. So there's all that data is available to us. And we've done some analysis and worked through with the team, which is a distributed team of people who do, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a lot of different people who participate in social media. Some of them are doing a great job. They're all doing a great job. They've seen the analysis, and I think they're just ready for us to implement a program which leverages the most effective means of posting and begins to phase out some of the less effective means. It's not like they don't have other jobs. Everyone who's doing social media currently has a full-time job doing something else, and we ask them to post on social media.
Don't lock Celia out. I mean, she can get in, I think. She has a badge. No, I think personally, I mean, I found the communication much more useful. Like, so I don't know if it's being targeted to me or it's just, but like,
There's a newsletter just for people like Doug.
yeah, like maybe, but, and I'll say, have we put in the newsletter, just the recruitment for the board?
I don't know.
No, we have not.
Can we just,
I would like to send, one alone, because,
yeah,
it's too much noise.
yeah, one alone, cause I got one from B Surge, or what's the volunteer network?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, or
Right.
what's-
Whatever
that,
down.
Give Pulse.
Give Pulse.
Yeah, I got one from Give Pulse from Christine, and then it'd be nice to have it in the newsletter, and then I think we have a recording of your presentation. We'll just link to
Yeah,
that.
the PowerPoint, yeah.
Yeah. Then we'll link to that in there, just so that, before gives people some time to apply,
March 7th.
March seventh.
Yeah, and there will be an opportunity for the board. So we are, I mean, the prospectus we put out for a consultant to help us with the strategic plan on communications basically consists of doing like 7 interviews. One of those interview groups is with the board. Hopefully I'm gonna nail a contract down maybe this week for a consultant. We have selected someone I think is the best person for the job. And they will come to your next board meeting to introduce themselves and then follow up with probably a written survey for you to fill out, questions to ask of you of what you're hoping to see from the marketing and communications plan. So there will be an opportunity for you to weigh in, and then they'll follow up either in person. They're happy to do in person, but I think we probably have enough stuff on the agenda that we're not gonna individually with phone calls. Board.
Okay. What are you gonna, do you want to talk about the survey or what?
I would like your feedback. I mean, so the big parts of it are, I mean, we are doing this differently. We are opening up with screener questions, and that's a reflection really of the, you know, we got a lot of people last year. The demographics, from a scientific point of view, skewed heavily towards, females, white females over the age of 40, over the age of 50, really. So, the data that we got back last time was very useful, very helpful, but young people, so people between the ages of 18 and 26 polled at about 3% of all the respondents to the survey. As you all know, they make up about 33% of Boulder. We also did not get heavy representation from men in response to the survey, although I think we did settle for 25 or 35%, somewhere in between that in terms of the response rates. So we have, and that mirrors our user base as well. We will have in the screener questions in order to enable us to get the demographic representation that we're hoping to get. When we did the survey in 2018, I think it was the highest number that any department had ever gotten for Latino and Hispanic responses. So I think we were just at 4%, a little over 4%. The city had never been over 2% on surveys. I think they're better than that now, but we're hoping to get a percentage that better mirrors the population demographics of Boulder, both for young people and Hispanics. And we'll probably wind up, you know, we may increase the gift certificate in order to get that participation as we go through.
Are you doing this in-house or are you gonna?
We have a vendor who's going to be administering the survey, but in order to work our way through Colorado spam laws, we will be sending we will be sending the initial email. There will be a link within it that goes to a third-party thing, and then the analysis, we're planning on doing a lot of the analysis in-house rather than rely upon the outside firm to do it for us. That's where you really run into a lot of money. It can be useful. They can cross-tab everything. We're building it in also with the screeners to enable us to be able to cross-tabulate a lot of different information depending upon different demographic uses. The survey itself is pretty standard. It's almost identical to the questions that every other library in the state asks. It's also very similar to the questions that we ask in 2018. Our objective this time is to get a new benchmark. And as I say in the thing overall is I'm really hopeful that we get people that say they would be interested in signing up for a panel so that we can more frequently email them around questions and also get them to participate in focus groups. When we did the survey in 2018, we had over 3,000 responses in a couple of weeks. We asked people in Boulder, would you be willing to participate in a focus group? 800 responded that they would be. Obviously, that's a very big focus group. And I think, yeah, and that is very Boulder. And yes, and I think we did 3 focus groups afterwards. And I don't know that we're going to do more than that this time around, but I would like to see the level.
There's a company in Boston called C-Space. It builds these brand online panels to keep coming back to it. It's like having your own little focus group.
I can't hear you, Tom.
There's a company in Boston called C-Space.
Yeah.
And it builds online brand panels or, I mean, I've used them for politics. There's a range of different things, but you could look into that. To have a back to, and you may find it easier done by a vendor like that to go create it than to try to.
I think the firm that we're using also
Yeah.
does this kind of work. So the firm that we
Yeah.
picked to send out the administration for the survey.
I worked with this vendor for many years. They also manage panels for big pharma companies and other things. So if we want them to manage it for us, they can do it. But I see more, if you have an influx, you can just creating, for example, if you have a point of sale and you're always asking people to, hey, do you want to do a panel? Then having a vendor doing it for you is very convenient because you don't have to be worrying about all the stuff. But for us, if we are just going to do based on every year when we do a survey, hey, do you want to, we can actually get a list and I can upload it in our software that we just bought. And then I can build surveys, I can send them to them. It's easy to do this type of thing.
Were we emailing the survey to? Is it every library card holder?
Because,
All the subscribers to the newsletter.
so
So it's people who have voluntarily given their email address to us. And so that's the process.
So I saw the mention of the gift card, right? And any way to consider something local as opposed to an Amazon $5 gift card? I know it's,
Yeah.
I understand the convenience.
fulfillment of because it's a nightmare for us to do it. So they are just going to do everything that for us. So it's very convenient because we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but
Yeah, for us to do it,
Yeah.
it would be complicated.
We want it to be an incentive. I'm not sure, I don't know which one would be a broad incentive. An Amazon, listen, I was saying in 2010 that Jeff Bezos was the devil. I believe that even more so now. I'm not inclined to want to give him money, but it's an easy one to administer and also has an ease of use, which, I mean, DoorDash might be appealing to college students. I don't know.
you couldn't tie it to the cafe in any way?
We'll have to do it ourselves.
They could use their Amazon card at the cafe. We'll accept it. We'll accept an Amazon card for a
Treat you an
mocha latte. Yeah, for sure. You can't redeem this at the cafe? I don't know, Benita. I figured that would.
But I think, well, it sounds like the incentive was to try to get people who don't already regularly interact with the library, so that
Yeah,
cafe piece probably
The
wouldn't.
redemption rate on these things is pretty small. We don't think $5 is going to be enough to motivate 90% of Boulder. What we're hoping is that for young people, it might be some incentive
My kids would do it for $5.
for $5.
Amazon, yeah, I guess.
I
Yeah.
just buy on Amazon all the time, so, $10.
Get your next bag of Doritos delivered to the door.
Real Pete's would be the next one, probably on. Like, so,
Well, any questions about the substantive questions about the content, any of the interview questions? The one that I think we battled over the most was around the question around gender. I feel like we landed in a good spot. It's always a little bit of the city used to have a standard, which they used. I think that was probably the most complicated question we had. The rest of them, they've either been tried and tested by us or by other libraries and or nationally. I did catch one typo today, Maria, so we'll have to.
Yeah, we would
On the state line.
Very last question makes no, I'm not sure what broad community issues.
Yeah, it was two questions and the advisor we had made us limited to two. So amusingly,
So do you volunteer in the community? Do you, what, but what is working on a broad community issue?
would we benefit by putting a few examples there?
Something, because otherwise you're gonna get a yes or a no, and you're gonna interpret what the yes or no means.
Let's just ask so that they know what they're asking.
I can say.
And the other thing I was gonna ask, is in all the list of things in number 10, I mean, there's so much that goes on in terms of Boulder Reads and the GED stuff and now there's GED. Like, that's kind of all in eight.
Yeah.
It seems to me like we're not even telling our own, part of the survey is you get to tell your own story.
It's true.
Well, that's just an argument, I think.
Right.
I think we're,
Think about breaking some of those programs out separately in this to see who's aware of it, would they use it? They recommend it to other people. You know, all the stuff that Karen, was Karen North Boulder? I mean, that's.
Aren't we
to
gonna
me,
do
that's
that
where
with
you-
focus groups,
That's where you've
David?
done a lot of good in the community.
I'm sorry, Jennifer.
Aren't we gonna do that with the focus groups afterwards? Get more down in the weeds?
We are, and I mean, there's two different opinions on whether or not a survey is an advertising tool. I'm not a big believer that it is one. I don't know that it's the best avenue to get good feedback. So in a sense, we're trying to be illustrative rather than comprehensive. So if you hand this to 12 librarians, which we did, everybody wanted to add a dozen examples and
Right, but
and
if
we
you're
had
trying to
list
get
of
a
20
baseline here to build on and think about. We just had a big conversation about programs and events.
Yeah.
We're not very specific in here, so I don't know what you get. One circles H that you're gonna use to plan out programming and events. So I'm just saying, like, you're self-defeating what is right now, what we've grown and you guys are doing amazing work with. I think you'd want to learn about that. See, when you're aware of this kind of stuff, does this make you more likely to support the library, being part of the library?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Tom.
Oh,
No, it's good. I'd be curious to hear what other people think, because we did have these conversations inside the staff. So I truly, my opinion, is that there is not one thing that we're gonna get from this survey which causes us to act on something.
Why are we doing it?
It's to gather a baseline, and some of the questions like the general perception and to find out the correlation. Down, if you're interested in certain topics and we sit down with the focus group, we can have an in-depth conversation about what things we might be doing. But if we might be able to even do it in a panel discussion. We find 30 people who are interested in outreach and English as a second language or something like that. We can ask them more specific questions. But to the broad audience, merely familiarity with some of these things is what we're testing. Like it's the initial question was, have you used an online database? Well, we didn't want them to misunderstand the question. So we added examples of it to it, but we have data already to know that it's not 1/5 of our library users. So if 50% of the people say they have, they're probably lying or exaggerating what they think we want to hear or what they want to think about themselves. And so there's always that balance when you're doing a survey about what people think you want them to say, especially on a topic like the library, where education and the value around education is important. I think people do inflate the value. Some of it is just Boulder, right? So Boulder is a kind of a perfect kind of test case for library soup, right? It is somewhat more affluent than average. It is way more educated than average. There are a lot of things
David,
that feed into. Yeah,
I'm just saying, there are things in here, like, right? We're doing one Boulder, one reads. That's gonna be going on in the community about survey. We don't ask about that. Have you heard about that? I don't know that we ask about, maybe we asked about the newsletter and I missed it. But it's like, I don't understand why we're not measuring things that we're talking to the community about. That we're offering to the community in a way that you can get information back as to how people react to it. So we've expanded the outreach program here. We've expanded the people who can serve as GED instructors. We've expanded the citizenship stuff. The community know about this stuff and how do they engage with it? That's not in here. You would not be able to get that out of this.
It was there.
Yeah, we've taken a lot out. I mean, it's,
Well, I mean, so that's when I come back to, why are we doing this? This is about helping to build out the programming that that we are investing in right now to go bigger than it used to be.
Presumably the reason you're removing this stuff is because there's concerns that you'll decrease the number of participants in the survey if it's too long, yes?
We wanted to keep it under 18 questions, which we did, under 20. We wanted to be able to complete it in less than 10 minutes. And I think, from where we sit, my opinion, what we talk about is not necessarily what the community is familiar with. So in the case of like Boulder Reads and English language, we estimate maybe highly that out of the 62,000 households in the Boulder Public Library District, there are maybe 1,600 households that may be users of this service, may potentially be users of this service. Currently, there are 110 students in Boulder Reads. So do you do a survey for 80,000 recipients that has 110 users? I get it that there's only a small percentage of people who might use the service. 95% of the public might feel really good about what the library is doing by us having that service, but I don't think we can rely upon that yet because we haven't done any of that. There is no marketing that's gone into saying like, here's the great stuff we're doing. I mean, the foundation is willing to fund some of that marketing, but what the foundation is also more willing to fund is doing the work, right? So we do the work for those 1,600 households, but the participation rate among those 1,600 households in the last survey was again, significantly lower. The response to the survey was significantly lower than what we would have hoped for. Or we plan to try to increase their participation in the survey this time around, but I don't know if there's any guarantees that we'll do it. So I think you have eyes on a program that we're trying to grow. I don't know the capacity simply because it is a highly labor intensive program.
Yeah,
But we do know how many people are there that might avail themselves of the service. And that's not more than 1,600 households. Big program for us, big part of what the library does. It's our bread and butter in some ways. It's about what our mission is. But is that something we want to ask the public whether or not they value?
One of the things that strikes me of just merging language learning resources and citizen preparation is that those could be very different audiences for those things. And in this environment, I think that whole citizenship preparation could, just make people very anxious. But I think language learning could very much, they don't necessarily go together. They're not the same people, right? And so there could be just a very different, somebody pursuing citizenship preparation, language learning. It just seems like you'd want to know the differences between those two things.
I think the only reason we group them is because for us to hold the rates and, it's a good point that for the people outside, it's not part of the same program.
Yeah.
For us, so that's what it's. We could move it.
Riffing off one of the things Sylvia, or no, sorry, riffing off one of the points just raised there with Nita. Do we want to maybe for what's your primary language spoken at home, do we want to add not like a non-reply? Like assume there's some subset of the population who's going to want to answer that question because we're a government entity in the age of trying to get deported. What is the primary language spoken in your home? Do we want to just add like an option 6, which is prefer not to reply or something like that? I just want to give folks an out, so they're not wanting to out anyone.
The only reason we were asking this is for us.
Yeah, it's a good question to ask.
Yeah, but
But I would maybe give them an out so that they don't feel,
Yeah.
yeah, I think just probably safer.
I just, maybe I shouldn't go back to this, but I kind of go back to your point, Tom. I think like, one of the ways we can measure participation in the current programs is through attendance, I suppose. So that's probably the biggest one. Registrations and wait lists and stuff like that. Yeah, it seems like I have no idea about these. I've never put one of these together, so I don't, I have to depend on what other people say, so. But what I got from questions 10 and 12 were like, one was about sort of auxiliary, what I call auxiliary services, maybe, I mean, not ebooks, of course, and books and movies, but like, these are all the things that the public space allows us to do, but aren't necessarily, you know, core to providing just books and magazines and reading material. You can disagree with me on that, but that's my take on that. And then 12 was sort of, if you do programs, what are the programs that you do? So I took that.
Yeah,
So
maintain his familiarity and I'm my,
yeah, familiarity with these services that we have. You know. Apparently, making copies and all that stuff. A lot of people do, because there's like $21,000 or something like that worth of copies.
Really?
Yeah, in the budget. I mean, I was reading it. It was a considerable amount, so it must be a service that a lot of people use. I think it's actually pretty easy. I did it the other day because you can just like upload it to a website and then go to any printer and print it. So I didn't know how easy it was. So you can do it from your house. And then when you come in, you can just have everything printed. So anyway, if you didn't know that,
yeah.
I learned that the other day.
I haven't had a printer since 2006.
Well, I wanted to
Yeah.
put on the billboard over there, and that's how I did it.
I own a printer, so.
Um,
Sometimes I don't have
Well,
a printer.
I-
I still need it.
I guess I mean, I'm happy to consider, is there a need to break out, more illustrative examples about language learning resources? And do you want to see citizenship preparation broken out as a separate thing for the purposes of, I'm not sure what, I think partly the groupings not only had to do with the fact of where we do, and I hear that, but it's also like you're hoping to get to 5% in terms of familiarity, or 10. Like, I don't know that some of these things will measure 10% familiarity. Some may be 20,
Well, I think
some maybe through the,
Familiarity doesn't necessarily mean that you're a user,
no.
right?
Oh.
so.
Are you familiar with?
Local,
Yeah.
maybe with the language learning resources, if you meant Boulder Reads or other programs, I would maybe put that in a parenthetical like you did with citizen. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Conversations in English adult literacy. And then I think citizens, be clarify on the parenthetical, what it's meant to describe.
They're meant to be illustrative, so we don't want people to get the
I
answer.
know, but the parenthetical illustrative of what? Citizenship preparation or?
Language learning.
Yeah, so
I see.
probably, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so
There's a proximity thing there.
should we break out citizenship preparation as something else entirely?
I mean,
Yeah.
the two pieces in H, I would make two things.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I understand why they're combined here, but I think I don't, like, as a regular person, I don't think of them as like one category.
Yeah.
So I think
But I
it
think-
might be somewhat more helpful to get different data points. I don't know.
But I would state Boulder Reads. I mean, I think
Yeah.
just as an example, right?
So we will be more helpful to say Boulder with programs such as
Yeah.
language learning. Blah, 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 blah.
Was is that the only one, or do we have others?
Boulder Reads is our conversation in English, our tutoring is a.
That is the language learning resource.
Citizenship preparation.
Reading
and that's Boulder.
buddies. You can get a
Boulder
tutor
Reads
for
has
it.
5 or 6 different.
Oh, I see. Oh, so that's what, okay. I wasn't
Mhm.
following that. That's why they're combined. Okay, because
You can get a high school diploma, you can study for your.
but it's all under the same umbrella.
Boulder Reads, yeah.
Okay, I didn't understand that.
So we can mention Boulder Reads, or we can just separate them and so.
Well, we can talk about it tomorrow. I think we use it as part of the illustrative under language learning resources.
Mhm.
Break citizenship out entirely.
Okay. Any more comments before we move on to?
This will probably go out before your next meeting, is our assumption, probably right around the next time your next meeting, so that thing will go out. And as to One Book, One Boulder, without any advertising, we have 58 people on the waiting list to get into the theater, so we're considering other options. So we hadn't really promoted it. I sent out you guys an email because I had seen that the first day that we posted it available, we had 178 people sign up. That's when I sent you the email. It's like, sign up now because
Yeah.
it's gonna fill up. And so now I think we're at a point where we're probably looking at we're looking at a number of options to the second floor, like we do for jail. I think we can seat 500 up there. So that's a very likely possibility. And then the other thing that I didn't have when I wrote the report, but that data came in on Friday, and I told Karen, Sam, Circ is up. So we're getting all the year-end data. You got the year-end financial report. Circ is up this year by 7% circulation of materials. That's primarily driven ebook. Physical books are flat, again, slightly down, but flat. Ebooks were up again 22% this year, so that drives overall, and they now make up, I think, either 36% of our total circulation is ebooks. And then the door count's up by 9%. Now, part of that's driven by Nobo opening up in July, but Reynolds also saw a really big number increases this year too, way more than you would account for by just being open an extra day a week. So that's all trending in the right direction.
Main flat, down,
Sorry?
door counts at Main.
Maine is up, not 9%. So Maine, Maine makes up about 60% of the total. So it's, I don't know, I think we're up 3 to 5% over. We bet big on the idea that people would come back, and hopefully this trend will continue. Reynolds saw about 20% growth in attendance this year. They closed during the pandemic for 2 years. So it's the word is getting out and people have come back in heavy numbers. Novo, looking at the year's data, doesn't look overwhelming, but we've been open there really for 5 months fully with the new building. And I think that'll change by next year. I think we'll see numbers similar to Reynolds and Meadows. So that's good news.
Gun Barrel's gonna be the most populated branch, I think, outside of. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'll be interesting, so the service area within the district is, it's roughly around 16,000. So what Novo is and what Reynolds is. But to what extent will it draw from people outside of the district? I think that's a fairly good bet.
Yeah, I think also just people don't go to the library as much because it's a longer trip,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Iowa.
Yeah, Niwot is where.
9 months, the other one.
They're all gonna be.
Okay, it's exciting. Okay, so trustee matters. We need to, there's two, I think, should be, okay, sorry. Set tentative, meeting for March 11th, to review the applications. So conversations with the city, they came back late. I don't know, I haven't, you want to talk about that or?
Yeah, I will. So, I met with the city on Friday. They do not like the revised, proposal for the process that you submitted. I asked them to put it in writing back as just a courtesy. I asked if they would redline a version. But they may still, I didn't get it by today, or you guys would have it today.
Who's
Meet with? It was Chris Mestrick,
Okay.
who had met with the committee and with, the mayor. And so they referred this back to the IGA, which I copied the page and put on your table. And so the sentiment, if I could summarize it, was simply that we're a year in. Can we just give the process a few more years before you revisit it? I don't think they had any issues really with informally doing anything that you had talked about, but I think there was ambiguity about how formal the process would be. And I think it came down to the idea that the board was going to vet candidates and recommend specific candidates to the thing, which assumes, and Kim may have to weigh in on this, my assumption was that if the board was going to be unified and make a recommendation, that would require a vote. And so that is a formal action. And that's the part that they're not really comfortable with. They don't want a formal action. They're fine if you guys sit down and talk about candidates, you come up with 3 that you really like a ton, that you all agree that we really like these 3 candidates, but not a vote that initiates a formal letter to the selection committee that says, here are the people that we have in mind to interview.
So my comments on this is, I don't think it really changes what we've discussed. I think we'll meet on the 11th. We'll go through the applications. People can voice, you know, whether they think this is a suitable candidate or not a suitable candidate, and we'll give that information to you, and you guys can express your opinions to the,
Yeah.
our opinion as a board, which we didn't get to do last time. And
Right.
so, and they asked us and we hadn't talked about it, so we weren't.
didn't feel
super
comfortable doing that,
comfortable
right.
Doing it, so I don't think it really.
So I didn't know about this meeting, but you saw the message from Tina, right? She said she read it because I was concerned that the council hadn't seen the memo. And so did you affirm that they all did get it or did they not?
I don't know about they all got.
Okay.
I
Well, we ended up setting it
Given-
separately,
It's from the mayor about what.
Yeah. which is what, I mean, he said to me when I saw him at the comp plan session. But I said, well, we didn't hear anything from you all. So, and then he,
Yeah, they did not feel compelled by the deadline, and we talked about this today. We're not, it's an intergovernmental agreement between three different groups. We don't tell them what to do. We send them a thing and ask them for a deadline. I was worried about that at the outset, but they feel like the process is the process. The IGA is fine. And we should follow the IGA as far as the formal process is structured.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of ways we are following the IGA.
yeah.
And it cuts both ways. They don't.
I think,
Us what to
I
do
think
either.
we're fine. I
You're welcome to ignore our recommendation.
I didn't come, I would say I didn't come away from the last discussion about this thinking we were going to like
Right.
put together
no.
like a formal slate
No.
and like lobby. And it was just like, we wanted to meet and talk about it because we didn't last time and we wanted to. And
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I think it will go fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be you two in the room with two people you know, four people you know, and I think it's gonna be perfectly fine, and I'm not.
So did they have an expectation that we were going to change our plans?
Only in the sense that a formal written recommendation would not be forthcoming.
So we just wouldn't we wouldn't make any formal decisions, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
which I don't
So-
think you could.
Right.
I think you can discuss candidates
and-
all you want. You could all call everybody on the committee that you want and say, here's who I think should be. I don't think anybody's saying don't do any of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's the
and
potential for conflict. And
Yeah.
the example that I used for Doug when I debriefed Doug on Friday was that, say you eliminated a candidate who applied for the job, who is a strong advocate of parental control. And all they really talk about, so you eliminate them from the thing. The selection committee is then either going to agree with your decision or feel like it is a hyper political issue. And they choose to interview that candidate. And so it unnecessarily drives a wedge between two governing boards who neither
Yeah.
probably have an interest in having somebody who wants to come on the board and exert parental authority over who buys the books. But you've created a situation where you did not, or you did recommend for interview, and they all say like, no way we're interviewing this person, or we are definitely interviewing this person because you said we couldn't. And so it just creates a kind of a potential conflict where I'm not sure you really hope for that to happen. I think you had the best intentions in mind. You wanted to find some good candidates and recommend them forward. I think by tonight's showing, we have a bunch of good candidates, not worried about it.
Oh, yeah, totally. The only thing I thought about after we kind of decided how we wanted to proceed was, so what we were hoping to change was before the interview, right? And this, doing it in the way that we're stuck with, it still leaves open the possibility that, we could pick two or three that we think are the strongest, and then they could totally bomb in the interviews, and we may go, maybe that wasn't the right choice. So at least that also takes us, we're not committed to two or three if somebody, if they don't do well in the interview.
Have you set the date for the first meeting with your committee, or have you?
I think it's during the week of or something.
No, I know, but you haven't confirmed with the.
No, we haven't confirmed
Okay.
who the
You probably
county
get that.
players are.
I'm waiting on response.
Oh, okay. Yeah, waiting on stuff.
We don't know who the other.
You don't know the
person-
county people are.
Right.
It's still possible that meeting occurs before March 18th? I'm just trying to decide if we even need an extra meeting or not.
Well, if it, how about this? We set it as a special meeting and we can cancel it if the meeting is after the 18th, and we can review the applications on the 8th. I don't know what,
Yeah, I like that.
and then
And mostly
But-
I like that because I'm on a plane on the 11th.
I know. I gotta think about what, I have to go to Paris the next day, so.
So, yeah, so ulterior motives.
So are you here on the
I
eighteenth?
will be here on the 18th, but on the 19th, I'm leaving.
I'm not opposed to having a separate meeting, but you
No,
know,
I just,
if the committee's not even meeting till
Let's
April. at
do
this
that.
point,
If-
It's not necessary.
let's set the schedule for the 11th. Before we do that, and then we can cancel it if we don't need it. Everyone's okay with what David and I then discussed, and I don't think I think people are, misunderstanding what our intent is, and so, yeah, and so I think it'll go fine when
Right.
human beings get together, when,
So
especially
you
two.
don't think they're misunderstanding?
No,
I think they are misunderstanding.
Okay.
I
I
think they are,
just-
sorry.
I think they thought we were trying to like give ourselves power that's not in the IGA.
Right.
Which,
And all we're saying is that
This will-
you guys came back and said, hey,
Clearly.
last year they asked us, like, what do we think of the candidates? And we didn't know what to say because we hadn't met as a board and talked about it.
Right.
So this year we're trying to rectify that problem. That's it.
That makes perfect.
and the city knows that the county, you communicated that the county had no issues with this?
Yeah. It is just so you know, like in the future, if you do want to have some changes to this thing, we need to give council time to amend the IGA, right? They have to have time to amend the IGA. We can't just say we're changing the IGA and like, hey,
Change.
But nothing we're doing here changes.
Not changing.
We'd only need to change, my read is we'd only need to change the IGA if we wanted to actually have a voting.
Recommend a panel.
Well, I think we could recommend a panel today. It says we advise council.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
we could do that today. The only thing we have to change the IGA to do is if we wanted like to actually have a voting power. Like right now it's ultimately their decision.
Right.
And we're not doing anything to change that.
And the
Right.
plan was to still respect that and
Yeah.
leave it that.
Well, yeah, I don't think any of us are suggesting that we would even want to change.
No, and nothing that we wrote, shared, communicated that in any way.
Never.
I feel the same way, but
Yeah.
that's not the something that I've done.
Well, maybe we revisit it. I mean, because David, you said, they said a few more years of the current practice. So maybe we just, whoever's here in a few more years, Andy and Tom, like if you want to remember to bring this up again,
I'll be
I
here.
don't think we need to change the IGA, but if they want to go there, like,
too.
I'll play that game. I'll ask for more.
but I think they said in 3 years.
Yeah.
The idea was 3 years, but okay.
So.
Well,
But I mean, this was to be
But I think our
moving in that direction.
process is fine though, right? We can still do application, we can still discuss them.
Yeah.
We're not gonna officially eliminate anyone, but I think we can probably find a way to say we have this set of candidates that.
Yeah.
prefer.
I think you could say that this candidate's responses on their survey or whatever violate the the Library Bill of Rights or whatever it's called. What is it called?
Yeah.
Library Bill of Rights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have a decent bit of space to play here.
Yeah.
While making it clear, we are not interfering with the fact that it's ultimately their decision.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm gonna make a motion to set a special meeting on the 11th if needed. Since this is our meeting, I have to do that, so
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, motion carried. The only reason I wanna look at the 18th schedule, if like, we're gonna spend 2 hours on applications,
It's
I'd
true.
rather do 2 meetings, I gotta see what we got deck for there. For the, bylaw changes.
The copy,
Oh, that's the copy.
it's not a. full-
Oh, okay.
Whoever brought these, thank you.
Anita or, do you want to discuss the?
I'm happy with this.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so we
Oh, this is just the email.
talked in the last meeting about the issue about changing the annual meeting day. And the current bylaws say in section 6 that the April regular meeting is the annual meeting and that board officers who are elected start their term the first regular meeting in May. And so based upon the discussion, section 6 would be changed to now say that the annual meeting is in May. And then depending on our discussion here today, if we left it the same, then the officers would take up their spots at the first regular meeting in June. So that's literally all we changed. But in the course of doing this, we also realized that it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for us to fix a lack of uniformity regarding how we calculate days. So we have in two places where we say the words working days, and in another place we say calendar days. And so I would just suggest that we change the working days to calendar to just make them all match. If that is agreeable to all of you. I mean, it's easier if we have one
That's fine.
standard.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Sounds great.
weren't we also, didn't we want to also think about saying
Yeah.
the new officers, but that's your next.
Yeah. That was the next
The
point.
thing that brought
Exactly.
up.
So then the next question, and Benita raised this question and, it's a good one, is so right now, the way that it's written is we elect the officers in 1 month and then they don't take their position until the next month or the next regular meeting. And so the question is, do we want to keep that or do we want to just make it such that when the election occurs, then they take their position after the election?
I prefer that.
And I mean, I don't really have a
I'm
preference.
sorry, so like,
So,
I'm just, I'm
okay,
very literal.
Okay.
So you mean like that, like
So,
starting
like,
after
okay.
the meeting's over, now you're.
right. So, okay,
not
so
during the
I was treasurer last year
Mhm.
and then you became treasurer.
Yeah.
But in the way that this was written, you didn't actually become treasurer until the month after.
Till the June.
So you and I
meeting.
visited, right, so you and I
Yeah.
visited and talked about things. So the way that this would work is, you were voted in, and then I would have been like, here's this pile of papers.
As of like that meeting.
You're the treasurer now, yes.
I don't know.
It's a little easier.
Yeah, my experience on boards, and I know we all have different experiences, is that people take office in that transition time. I mean, so there isn't the
What did we do in the commission?
awkwardness.
I'd say at the conclusion of the meeting, the new,
Mm,
at
I would do it as soon as the vote occurs.
oh yeah, you've sworn
that
in.
meeting.
So, okay, so then what we would say is board officers shall be elected for the ensuing year with terms beginning,
At the annual meeting?
Immediately.
well, it would be upon,
On election.
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 Yeah,
something.
something.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay, upon election.
We can have a ceremonial passing of the gavel.
We
It'll be.
could, I mean, if we had. Okay, so we will fix that. Working.
Kim, if one question, sorry, I don't, never mind. I'll ask this question after. This is on a separate topic, so. Sort of.
That's it?
Everyone okay with that?
Okay.
No, we can't vote on it. We need to publish it.
Our next.
For
And
10 working days, because we haven't changed it.
technically, the library is open 7 days a week, though.
I know,
but
that's what
I
I said.
Then we're gonna be quibbling about the.
like-
But it is good to clarify all the spots where it said,
That's
days.
that's what I thought we should do is just
Yeah,
to go through and maybe Celia and I can do that separately and then.
Andy
make
did.
sure we're double checking each other. Yeah, I mean, word searches usually
Would we be voting at the special meeting or the regular meeting?
the regular meeting,
Regular meeting.
that was gonna be a good question. That was gonna be my question.
be the regular, right?
Well, I would think it'd be the regular meeting on the 18th.
Yeah. Okay, so then based upon that, I'm gonna do the math right now.
Working days would be.
Yeah, 1, 2.
We can always notice earlier than necessary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, right, so
Do it now or next week.
Is there a spot in there though where you have to declare whether you want to be an officer by like March
actually
15th?
was gonna ask that.
Yeah, we should probably
What
say
we did-
April 15th.
Right, we should probably double check the minutes, but I felt like we wanted people to declare like a month, like the meeting before.
Yeah, the meeting before.
I think that's what we
But
did.
is that in the bylaws
I
or?
don't think so, no.
Okay.
We have nothing like about.
We should,
was in the policy.
we should be careful making us, because part of the reason I moved to the meeting is to ensure we're including the new joinees.
Correct.
So we should be careful of setting up a system that then, statutorily excludes them again, because they will not be present at the meeting prior in order to declare their candidacy.
Yeah,
Which is also a good point. All it says about the election and the bylaws is the board shall elect officers annually from among current membership of the board at the annual meeting. Da-da-da. That's it.
okay, well, they can take some nominations from the floor. if we want.
Yeah, I mean, we can set a norm of,
Yeah,
you know, it's a polite thing to let folks know, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily codify it in our bylaws.
That's true, yeah.
Policies, something.
Yeah, I thought it was in a policy or something, but we'll go and we'll search that. Policies are,
Well, and Sylvia, do we want to talk about the foundation trustee positions at all as well?
Yeah, we can do that now. I mean, we're done with the bylaws update, right?
yeah, I mean, we would elect the foundation people at that.
At the same one. Yeah, that's what we've done. That's what we did. That's what we did. I mean, I guess that was a carryover from what we did on the commission.
Okay,
Yeah, and it makes sense to do it all at one time. It's a lot easier.
is that what you wanted to talk about?
I just have a different item.
Okay,
We don't,
well, can I ask Kim this one question? Well, we'll to legal matters. Go ahead.
did we respond to John Etra about he asked about having cards?
Oh, I took that as a solicitation to buy something, so I did not respond.
Well, he just said, I suggest.
I
You've
read it
heard-
as an advertisement as well.
Well, I didn't think so. I just thought, well, somebody should just courtesy respond.
Can you take a look at that, David?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
So we have ordered, there's a thing called the red card. It's available. We got staff requests for it some time ago. We have already begun printing some of our own, but we ordered some on
Uh-huh.
stock. So we should have them. I don't know what the date is. Do you know?
What they have today?
They were at,
Okay,
so they're out and around today.
you don't have, I'd like to see him.
No, I know. Do you want to scoot up?
I'll look for him at the front desk.
We're gonna talk.
But I just wanted to make sure that we responded to him.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw that. I saw that. There was another.
Good nap?
Order here.
I know. Okay, I just want to make sure we got a response.
Okay, and there was another woman about a program, and I also took that as a solicitation, and I didn't find it. I needed to respond, but some program she had done at a different library and
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
and was offering it to us here, so
I don't think I saw that one.
you know, I can forward it to you, but okay. Sam, did you have a?
Yeah, the thing I talked to you and David about, I just want to suggest that the board do another listening session with the staff. Tom, I guess for your benefit, maybe Andy's,
There.
when we formed the district and created the board, so that was May, right? Within a few months of that, we held a forum for the staff where I think David and maybe Johnny gave updates on kind of what's happening. And then the trustees were there to listen to the staff about what they were excited about, what they were concerned about. And so now, yeah, now we're a year plus past that, so another check-in might be a good idea. So sometime between now and maybe this summer, before you start putting together the budget.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't have to be there for it. I'm
you were
happy
pretty
to
good.
be there.
We missed
Yeah.
our two HR people.
I'm happy to be there, but if you decide you'd rather push it back, when I'm not, that's okay too. But I just think it would be a good thing to do. So just putting it out there.
It was very well received last time. 2 of you would have to volunteer. I can't have 3 because the staff did not want it to be a public.
And I would volunteer if it happens before May.
So if you have time to do it in April, that'd be good. Do you think so, or?
Quite possible. I don't know what's on the agenda, but I will check we have an all-staff meeting every month. And so we'll probably do it during that time. It's an hour over lunch.
And it was recorded so other trustees could listen.
Yeah.
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 We recorded it.
Did we record it? I don't remember.
We took notes.
thought
Like I said, initially, we had a discussion as to whether or not
I think we
really did not want it to
we
be.
didn't. I don't
Oh,
think.
okay, you're right.
So we restricted it to 2, and I don't know that they wanted it to be video.
I think we took notes.
reported.
We had
Yeah.
Celia take notes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Questions.
that's right. It was just notes.
Well, if Sam does it, if we do it in April, I'll do it with Sam.
Okay.
And then, unless anybody has a strong opinion that they wanna do it,
Not
but
here in April again.
yeah, you're gone.
Do all the good stuff in April, Doug.
It's crazy how the year ticks by, right? Cause you're like, oh, if I can't do it here, I'm gonna do it in June or whatever, you know? Okay, any more trustee matters?
We were gonna talk about the foundation representative.
Like who's gonna be on the foundation?
Well, just generally kind of letting everyone know that we had kind of come up with some ideas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Do you want me to lead the discussion or do you?
why don't you do it, Andy?
Okay, sure. Well, so Sylvia and I chatted. I mean, there's no bylaws here, so this is all just a norms thing, and we can decide we want it to be different. But I think right now Sylvia has now been in the role as the foundation rep for 2 years, so she's looking to step down at the end of this cycle. So I guess we'll effectively go till May with the way we're moving this stuff. That means we would have at least one open seat. We did say it probably makes sense to try not to have our two reps step down simultaneously, so we at least have some continuity. So that means, by definition, I would stay on for at least another year. I could do a second year as well, at which point we'd kind of start to set a norm that this is more or less a 2-year thing that folks do. But that does mean there's at least one open foundation seat for someone to take. Also potentially for one of the new, or I guess the new trustee to take, since they will have that opportunity the way we're moving this stuff around. This is another norms thing, and we can decide we don't want it like this, but we did kind of think it might be useful to keep these roles available for folks that aren't seeking officer positions, because it's another way to kind of spread the load around a little bit. So obviously, as an officer, you have extra duties. Sitting on the foundation is a set of extra duties. It spreads that out a little bit.
Can you
Um,
explain what, the time commitment is a little bit and?
Yeah, so it's at least, I mean, Chris is here, and I'm sure Chris, feel free to chime in as well, but at the very least, it's one more meeting each month, because there's a separate meeting for the foundation. That meeting's a, roughly 2-hour meeting. There's probably a couple hours of prep work or emails or reading a packet outside of that meeting. So it's probably another 3 to 5 hours per month on top of the normal commitments. The foundation's about to embark on kind of strategic planning effort as well that might have some additional roles. We've intentionally kind of tried to keep the foundation reps from having too many extra commitments there, since it is one more thing on top of what we're already doing. But, it's at least 3 to 5 hours a month. And if you wanted it to be more than that, you certainly could find ways to contribute beyond that.
It's at 5 rather than 6.
Yeah, it does. It starts an hour earlier.
Don't get dinner, but there's lots.
But there's snacks. There's going to be sometimes a year, like when we do the gala and stuff, like there's busier times of year when we're doing fundraising. You'll write a lot of thank you notes, it's that sort of thing. But I think it's a good opportunity to see how the philanthropic mission goes hand in hand with the work we're doing here. And I think increasingly, especially with the strategic plan, it's going to be an important opportunity to think about. There's this fun nexus of like, what do donors want to give money to, and how do we reconcile that with the mission of the library, and ideally find a nice alignment between those two things where the foundation can raise significant money to support the efforts that we're pushing forward here. So I guess the TLDR here is there's going to be at least one open seat going into the May meeting. Technically, any of us are eligible for that seat other than me, who holds the other seat. The new joiner will also be eligible, but depending upon who's seeking officer roles, that might kind of also change who would maybe take this on as an additional duty.
It's a jargon thing. What was TL?
Oh, sorry, too
didn't
long,
read.
didn't read.
I
Oh,
lied
okay.
with my.
Okay.
Millennial talk for you sent me a long email and I didn't have time to read the
Thank
whole
you,
thing.
I just learned.
I apologize.
Text talk.
Chris, anything you wanted to add?
Summary, Andy, I would just add, we have committees that everyone is asked to participate in. Those meet quarterly. And also we have chairs of our committees, and we don't have our library representatives chair committees, really out of respect for your time. And so involvement, engagement, interest is all what we're looking for, while also making sure that this is a liaison role, but that it's also helping to continue to cement this this walking in lockstep relationship that we have with you all and that we want to maintain.
So I guess think about whether this is something that interests you. And again, when we go through the selection process and we decide who to bring on someone new, this is something we'll probably want to advertise to them as well. So.
Hopefully before the May meeting, we'll have a new trustee selected and we could maybe do some orientation before you guys did orientation before you were seated, or did they wait until you're fully
No,
ratified?
we did it, I think the day of our first,
No board meeting before we were on.
Okay, and then,
then
okay,
David.
yeah, we met with David at least, if not the day of that meeting, a day or two before, so.
yeah, and on the norms thing, I mean, it's my personal thing, it's like, it's 5-year term, and, there may be years where you want to take a more active role in the board and other years, so, there could be years we have to double up if, stuff happens but I kind of like that idea. My personal opinion.
And I would say like, if you have interest or you have questions, like reach out to Chris or reach out to me or Andy. We're happy to kind of walk you through what it is and how it works, but I know Chris is always ready to chat.
Yeah, as is Kitty DeKeeper, our
Mhm.
board chair. She's very, very interested in this relationship with your board as well.
It is a fun gig and sometimes like there's some fun stuff, right? Like the board this month, we'll actually be voting on $150,000 to fund very specific programs that the staff will oppose.
$250,000.
of programs that the staff proposed. You learn a lot, actually. You learn a lot about how the two
It's
work
great.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you're interested in fundraising, well, you will be at after 2 meetings, because that is a heavy focus of what that foundation board does.
And we did actually have one of our prospects who has since left, did ask specifically about the philanthropic work. So it is possible that we would wind up with a new trustee that's specifically interested in that line of work as well. But just wanted to put that out there that there will be I serve at your all's pleasure, so you can decide you do not want me to continue to be a rep to the foundation, but outside of me, there will be at least one seat we definitely need to find somebody for.
And do we think that just as we would with the officers, do we want folks to like express intent that they're interested in that just the same, just because
I think so.
to me,
At
it's
least,
easier to know in advance.
at least, a week or so before the
Yeah.
meeting.
Agree.
Well, and it's important for us to know if nobody's interested.
Well,
Because
too, and
we need to find someone.
It's a new person.
I doubt that's gonna happen, but if that did happen, I would continue.
We would.
Yeah.
Forcefully vote someone on, so no.
Yeah.
I'm told somebody. Okay, any legal I have one question. If we do a special meeting, Kim, on the 11th, not that it matters because we don't have any public comment, could we do it as like a study session to review? I mean,
Sure.
when do you have to do public comment? Only at your regular meeting, right?
You never have to do it.
Oh,
You
well, we
re-
do it.
Yep. Yeah. So if you have a special meeting, you don't have to include it.
Okay,
If you have a work session, you can include it. It's really
Yeah.
up to you. You
okay,
really kind of do it as a political matter and a matter of openness.
yeah. But, if we're just trying to knock some stuff out here, that might be,
Well, and I would say
I don't know what to talk about on the schedule.
if we're committed to not voting on anything, I'm fine with no public comment. If we were going to take a vote, I would still want to do public.
I
comment.
get that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
If
you.
you want to
ahead.
make it a work session, the difference between a work session and a special meeting is just a meeting that's not general. But a work session, you would announce ahead of time in the agenda that you're not going to be voting on anything, just receiving
Okay.
reports. So you're just kind of binding your own hands, but
Yeah, let's do
There's
it a special
resistance.
meeting. We'll keep it as a special meeting in case some really thing we would need to vote on and we don't bind ourselves. Not that we vote on just city can be calm, we won't vote on that, but even if we did, it wouldn't be binding. So, anyway, that's all I have. Any other comments? I'm gonna adjourn the meeting, but meeting adjourned.
This is Discoveries Magazine.
It's nice.
Its 30th plus year. It is the writings of the students in the both program. So